In the grand old county of Yorkshire in England, there's a village where the pies always have a golden crust, the fish and chips are always crisp, and the soundtrack is a vinyl LP with the needle of reality not quite in the groove. Join me, your storyteller, as we take a walk through Wychbeck. It's the start of the working day at the GP surgery. Dr. Mark Benson is running through the upcoming appointments on his computer. Nurse Constance Fox stands by the window, cupping a mug of coffee and watching the village wake. The milkman is making his deliveries. The newspaper lad is on his round. 87-year-old Mrs Gawthorpe is running down the main street like an Olympic sprinter. She's carrying 6 bags of shopping. Constance blinks. "That's the 4th one this week, Mark," she says, taking a swig of coffee. What's that?" Mark replies, still focusing on his screen. "Mrs Gawthorpe's just gone past like a racehorse, carrying half the stock of the village shop." "It's the hangover from that business with the wardrobe, Connie. We've got to expect a few irregularities," Mark says, then looks up from his screen. "Oh, Sabrina started selling that power blend matcha tea again." "It's the pensioners. I'm telling you, they're not right," Constance says. "When I took Mrs Anderson's blood pressure the other day, the monitor melted." Over at the antique shop, proprietor Gordon Hale is sorting through boxes of vintage books. He brushes against one of the precariously stacked piles he's created, toppling it over and sending books skidding across the floor. The door of a nearby wardrobe opens and a Victorian-era gentleman pops his head out. "Mr Hale, this establishment entirely lacks proper organisation," the Victorian says. "It's an aesthetic choice," Gordon replies as he gathers scattered books. "People like a bit of clutter in an antique shop. It encourages rummaging. And please, do call me Gordon." "Then you must call me William," says the Victorian. He exits the wardrobe and helps Gordon pick up the books. "How are your bruises, William?" Gordon asks. "On the mend," William answers. The Victorian rubs the black eye caused by his recent collision with the fists of Sir Montague Stride. "You were lucky you didn't use the shotgun," Gordon says. "I'm just a minor official of the ministry," William appeals, furrowing his brow. "I only do what I'm told. Think of me as an instrument. Yes, that's it. I'm a tool." "Yeah, you're a right tool," Gordon mutters under his breath. "Have you given any thought to your future? You can't live in my wardrobes forever." "I find it comforting," William says. "I am a man entirely out of his time, Mr Hale." Gordon: "The world I knew vanished nigh on 2 centuries ago. I am all at sea." "Bit of an antique yourself, eh?" Gordon says. William looks glum and lowers his head. Gordon puts his hands on his hips and looks around the shop. "Look, I suppose I could do with a bit of help. I can't pay much, mind you." William looks up with a beaming smile before restoring his Victorian composure. "You shall not find me wanting, Gordon." "But don't expect an easy ride in the village," Gordon cautions. "People won't forget that you tried to wipe us out." "I shall diligently apply myself to restoring my good name," William says. "Now, shall I begin by categorizing these books?" "First things first," Gordon says. "Go and put the kettle on and get the chocky biscuits." At the garden centre, owner James Walker is trying to shovel bark chippings into bags, but they're swirling on the ground and evading his spade. Village head mistress Emily Winstanton arrives, carrying an activity planner and a formidable array of highlighter pens. "I hear you're having an organisational crisis, James," Emily says. "How can I help?" She produces a high-vis vest from her bag and slips it on. "Always a pleasure, Emily," James says. "But I'm not sure how you could help. I'm trying to bag up these chippings, but they keep rearranging themselves into a map of Yorkshire." Emily steps closer. She brushes James's hand as she takes the spade from him. "Teamwork," Emily announces. "Grab a snow shovel from the clearance section and we'll come at them from both sides." James starts to move, but then freezes as he looks over Emily's shoulder. Emily, turn around slowly. No sudden movements." Face worried, biting her lower lip, she turns, ever so slowly. 10 paces away stands a group of ceramic garden gnomes, ranked up like soldiers ready for inspection. The usual characteristics are present: jaunty red hats, grey beards, little gardening tools and fishing rods in their hands, making the softly pulsating neon eyes even more unnerving. "I thought you sold those gnomes," Emily says. "I did," James replies. "Looks like they didn't like the new home." Over in the woods, retired Colonel Reginald Dander, dressed in a ghillie suit and holding a rifle, is crawling through the undergrowth. Lucy Coleman walks behind him, carrying a bundle of twigs she's collected. "You see, I'll do a bit of carving on these and give them a coat of varnish. The Wiccans will snap them up when they come for the summer solstice," Lucy says. "Do you reckon 30 quid each is fair? Hand-carved wands and all that." "Contact! Enemy at 2 o'clock!" the Colonel barks, levels his rifle and fires a shot. There's a squeak from up ahead. "It's a squirrel," Lucy says. "And you missed." "Don't be fooled, my girl. Saw something similar back in 86. Nobody paid attention to it until it ate the postman." The Colonel produces a pair of binoculars and looks through them. "I say, this chap looks like a rum customer." He hands the binoculars to Lucy. Striding through the woods about half a mile away is a bizarre figure. It looks like someone tried to make a wicker man, gave up halfway through, and patched it with metal plates and brass cogs. Glowing wires weave in and out of the gaps, snaking up its neck towards a pair of pulsating neon blue eyes. It stops walking and looks in the direction of the village. "By Jove, I wonder if I should try to bag him," the Colonel says, raising his rifle. "I don't think that would be a good idea," Lucy replies, crouching and putting a restraining hand on his arm. The wicker man tilts his head to the sky. Cogs whir, an aperture resembling a mouth opens, and a sound like a whistle of a steam train blasts out. Then he moves off. "Come on," Lucy says. "Let's see where it's going." At the garden centre, the whistle cuts through the air. The ranks of gnomes take a step forward. Their eyes turn from neon blue to red. Operating with military precision, they fan out. Little ceramic feet click-clack, click-clack as they march. They sweep their heads from side to side, eyes casting red beams across barcodes on potted plants, seed packets and garden tools. They entirely ignore Emily and James. "Are they scanning?" Emily whispers. Then comes tragedy. One gnome tries to march through the bark chippings as they rearrange themselves into a map of Doncaster. It trips and careens headfirst into a bag of compost, splitting it open and showering itself in an avalanche of dirt. It lets out a screech, shudders, and its eyes go dark. A crowd of gnomes gather, scanning the remains. They shrug, disintegrate their fallen colleague with a blast from their eye-beams, and click-clack off to continue scanning. "Am I wrong, or are they stock-taking?" James asks. "I don't know, but this is a health and safety nightmare," Emily says, hugging her high-vis vest close. Back at the antique shop, Gordon and William are sitting down to tea and biscuits. "Shall I be mother?" William says, picking up the teapot. "Here's what I don't understand," Gordon begins, taking a chocolate biscuit. "If you had the power to destroy the village, why were you trapped in a wardrobe for nearly 200 years? "The power wasn't mine. I was just a conduit for the authority of the ministry," William says, looking wistful. "But the wardrobe was wonderful. No sooner was I locked in than I began the most marvellous dream. I was a boy, it was an endless summer, Mamma, Papa and Nanny were all there. In truth, I was quite sad when you released me." "So why did this authority of the ministry turn people to stone and things to plastic?" Gordon asked. "It transforms everything into what is most likely to sell." "But it changed antiques, lovely things, into cheap tat," Gordon exclaims. William shrugs. "Tawdry things sold well in my time. I suspect it's no different now." Well, Sabrina at the village shop probably does sell more plastic flowers than I sell Moorcroft vases, Gordon concedes. Indeed. Turning people into statues was an especially good money spinner for the ministry. They sold very well to visiting Americans, William says. Oh, yes, in my time, a liquidator would have been along to price everything up as soon as Wychbeck had been transformed. Extraordinary, Gordon says. Efficient, William rebuts. There is as little waste as possible, and the ministry recoups some of the cost of the operation. The bell above the shop door rings as P.C. Simon Garrett enters, followed by Sabrina Hayward. Afternoon, Gordon, P.C. Garrett says. I'm afraid there's been a complaint about your visitor. Mrs. Hayward claims he's working here without the proper paperwork. How does gossip travel this fast? Gordon says. It's not fair, Sabrina exclaims. Not only has he got away with trying to destroy the village, now he's working here, flipping asylum seeker from the 19th century. Madam, William says, I am a true-born Englishman, a son of the Empire and a loyal subject of Her Majesty Queen Victoria. I'm not sure you're helping your case, Gordon says. At the edge of the woods, Lucy and Colonel Dander are crouching behind a fallen tree. The Wicker Man is standing in the middle of the ancient stone circle in the fields on the outskirts of the village. I can't help but admire the craftsmanship, Lucy says. It's really quite beautiful, in an I hope it doesn't eat us kind of way. The Wicker Man tilts his head to the sky and emits another whistle. Simultaneously, a ring of blue lightning erupts between the ancient stones, and pairs of red lights flicker on in gardens across the village. I don't like the look of this, Colonel Dander says. Time to take action, my girl. The colonel raises his rifle and aims at the Wicker Man, but there's a brilliant flash of light. When their vision clears, the colonel and Lucy see that the stone circle is empty. Bugger, the colonel curses. Blighter's done a runner. Over at the garden centre, the gnomes have finished scanning. They arrange themselves into a missing man formation and march towards the exit. They're just leaving, James says. Not quite yet, Emily whispers. Look. They watch as Mrs. Gawthorpe comes through the gates and halts in front of the gnomes. She's followed by Mrs. Anderson and a number of other elderly villagers. The gnomes emit a sequence of clicks and whirs. Without a word, the pensioners collect shopping trolleys and begin loading them at breakneck speed. They lift lawn mowers, terracotta pots, and all manner of tools with ease. They've turned the pensioners into a superpowered shoplifting gang, James says. I'm not having this. He grabs a garden fork and starts to move, but Emily pulls him back. Don't be hasty, she says. Those things are clearly dangerous. They might not be interested in us now, but that could all change if we become a threat. James looks uncertain, but then sighs and puts down the garden fork. We can't just let them use the pensioners like this, he says. And, knowing my luck, P.C. Garrett will try and have me up for aiding and abetting modern slavery. We need a plan, Emily says. Preparation prevents poor performance. Gosh, James replies. Your eyes get such a sparkle when you're problem-solving. Emily blushes, then looks around the garden centre. Her eyes rest on the pile of compost from the bag that was split open by the unfortunate gnome. What's in that compost? Emily says, tapping her lips with a highlighter pen. Wychbeck No. 8, James replies. It's a secret blend of minerals, fertilisers and mystic elements. I've got it on special offer. 3 bags for £15. I can deliver if you're interested. James, please, Emily says, giving him a sideways look. There's a time and a place. Sorry, James says. Emily thinks for a few moments. Pensioners whiz around the garden centre as if they're on a trolley dash. Right, she finally says. We need a wheelbarrow and a hose pipe. Back at the antique shop, P.C. Garrett and William are engaged in a bureaucratic duel. I understand you have a model railway, William says. Is it fully compliant with the 1842 Railway Regulation Act? My layout is a private matter, sir, Garrett says. I must ask you to produce a passport or driver's licence, national insurance number, and a utility bill from the last 3 months. You are not wearing a hat, sir, William says. Do you consider yourself properly uniformed under Queen's regulations, sir? Under King's regulations, the constabulary has a degree of flexibility in uniform, sir, Garrett replies. Now, I'm willing to give you until the end of the week to produce the paperwork. It's fascinating to watch, isn't it? Gordon says to Sabrina. Look, can't we come to an arrangement? You like a good deal. Call Garrett off and I'll do half price on that dressing table you've had your eye on. Why do you want to help him? Sabrina exclaims, stamping her foot. He's not a bad sort when you get to know him, Gordon says. There's no evil in him. He's just Victorian, rigid thinking, overly bureaucratic, all the things that made this country great. They're all silenced when the windows of the shop begin to glow red and vibrate. Oh dear, William says with a look of dismay. I've only just had those windows replaced, Gordon says as the shop door begins to glow. There's a flash of light and the door disintegrates. Click, clack, click, clack. A phalanx of gnomes marches in, followed by the Wicker Man. P.C. Garrett immediately confronts the strange entity. Now then, sir, I have to inform you that I believe you to be in contravention of local bylaws on light pollution. I'll say this for Garrett, Gordon remarks. You've got to admire the total disregard for personal safety. It's a liquidator, William gasps. The Wicker Man ignores P.C. Garrett and locks his gaze on William. His eyes narrow. Temporal anomaly detected, the Wicker Man says, extending twitching wicker fingers. Value priceless. Initiate retrieval. The gnomes advance on William. He looks at Gordon with an expression of panic. Mr. Hale, help me, I implore you. It will auction me off to the highest bidder. It will do no such thing, Gordon exclaims. Sabrina, do something. Me? Sabrina says aghast. What am I supposed to do against that monstrosity? Trade with it. Nobody's better than you at bartering. There must be something here it wants more than William. Sabrina smiles uncertainly at the Wicker Man and gives him a finger-wiggling wave. In the fields beyond the village, Lucy and the Colonel are inspecting the stone circle. Blue lightning surges from stone to stone, forming a ring of crackling energy. Everything about it screams, "Do not touch." Naturally, Lucy decides to do just that. She takes a twig from her bundle, extends it towards the nearest stone and gives it a prod. Slurp. The twig is yanked from her hand and vanishes. She looks at her empty, tingling hand and then back at the stone. Rude, she says. Then she hears a cacophony approaching from the other side of the circle. Sounds like a tank division, says the Colonel. As it turns out, he's less wrong than he has any right to be. Lucy sprints back to the fallen tree, dragging the Colonel behind her. They hit the deck just as a brigade of pensioners appears, pushing trolleys stacked high with spoils from the raid on the garden centre. Perched atop each of the trolley loads is a gnome, issuing commands in a series of clicks and whirs. More gnomes march behind. Without a word, the pensioners start hurling lawn mowers, ceramic pots, hedge trimmers, and all manner of other booty into the stone circle. Lightning intercepts every offering, and each object vanishes with the same slurp that devoured Lucy's twig. The nearby bushes rustle. Out steps Emily, with James hard on her heels. He's pushing a wheelbarrow full of soggy compost. Lucy gives her best "We're over here" manic arm wave. Emily spots her, nudges James, and the pair hurry over. "What's all this about?" Lucy asks. "Pensioners enslaved by garden gnomes," Emily reports. "Shoplifting from the garden centre." "Stupid of me not to have guessed," Lucy says with a grin. "So, a normal Thursday afternoon? Except it's not raining?" There's a click. They look around to see James taking pictures of the scene at the stone circle. "What?" he says. "You can't tell me I won't need pictures for the insurance claim." Lucy and Emily exchange a look and shake their heads. "All right, I'll bite," Lucy says. "Why have you brought a barrow full of mud to the party?" "Wychbeck No. 8 compost," James corrects her. "This stuff took out one of the gnomes at the garden centre," Emily continues. "Why would compost take them out?" Lucy asks. "Well, I don't know, Lucy," Emily says with a touch of exasperation. "Shall we send off a sample to the nearest university lab for a full analysis? We should have the results back in, 4 to 6 weeks. "OK, little Miss Snappy," Lucy says. "Wychbeck No. 8, Colonel Dander ponders. "Would that be good for repotting my patio roses?" James nods. "Oh, it would be an excellent choice. It's a very good blend for long-term nutrition." "Can we please have a bit of focus?" Emily exclaims. "So, what's the plan?" Lucy asks. Emily points at the wheelbarrow. "I was thinking we ball up the compost, like snowballs, and then let fly. Take out as many of them as we can." "We're engaging the enemy in a snowball fight." Colonel Dander looks doubtful. "I've had to improvise," Emily says, looking slightly sheepish, "but this stuff has proved it can deactivate them." Lucy glances at the enslaved pensioners. "Well, let's get on with it then." She plunges her hands into the compost and starts balling it up. The others follow suit. "Everyone ready?" Colonel Dander asks. "We form 2 ranks. One rank fires while the other rank reloads. On your mark, Miss Winstanton." Emily nods. 3, 2, 1, go! She shouts. James scores a direct hit with the first compost ball, striking a gnome square on the head. It lets out a screech, spins like a drunken ballerina, and falls flat on its back. Its glowing eyes fizzle out. "Oh, good show, that man," says the colonel. The victory is short-lived. The rest of the gnomes turn in unison and fire red beams from their eyes, disintegrating chunks of the fallen tree our friends are hiding behind. "Return fire!" barks the colonel, ducking as a disintegrator beam comes a bit too close for comfort. They're in a storm of deadly disintegrator fire, forced to bob and weave as their fallen tree shield gets rapidly smaller. But, throwing in flawless waves, they maintain a relentless bombardment of soggy compost. Incredibly, it's working. More and more gnomes screech their swan songs, shudder, and topple over covered in mud. Back at the antique shop, Sabrina is in saleswoman mode. Draping herself across a display cabinet, she gives a hair flick and attempts a sultry wink that comes out more like she's got grit in her eye. "Now then, Mr. Wicker, you don't want an old Victorian smelling of mothballs and tea bags." She grabs a 19th century crystal decanter off a shelf. It contains a glowing green liquid. "This makes a wonderful night light. Plus, a dab of the liquid on your cogs last thing before bed will do wonders for your complexion." The Wicker Man blinks his glowing eyes, entirely uncharmed. William, encircled by gnomes, is pinned against a grandfather clock he's trying to climb inside. PC Garrett is asking a gnome for a breathalyzer sample, while Gordon frantically rummages through boxes. "I know it's in here somewhere," he mutters. "Aha!" Sabrina puts a hand behind her back and wiggles her fingers. "Quickly," she says, and feels Gordon put something smooth into her palm. She whips it around to the front to show the Wicker Man. "But what you really need is this." Her voice trails away as she sees what she's holding. It's a plastic human skull with a stuffed jackdaw glued on top. "What are you thinking?" Sabrina says, glaring at Gordon. "That," Gordon begins triumphantly, "once belonged to Aleister Crowley, foremost occultist of the 20th century. He used it as a paperweight. It's a prime bit of old tat." The Wicker Man peers at it and raises what passes for an eyebrow. His head twitches from side to side, like a magpie eyeing up something shiny. "Don't tell me he's going for it," Sabrina says. "According to William, they like tawdry things," Gordon replies. Sabrina chances a seductive pout, but she's interrupted mid-flirt when the Wicker Man's head jerks a sickening 180 degrees that would break a human's neck. He glowers in the direction of the stone circle and emits a wail. There's a flash of light that blinds everyone. When the spots clear from their eyes, the Wicker Man and the gnomes have vanished. Sabrina smooths down her skirt and tosses the plastic skull to Gordon. "Job done," she says. "I assume it's free delivery on the dressing table?" At the stone circle, dozens of deactivated gnomes, plastered in compost, are scattered around. The last gnome standing looks at its mass of fallen comrades, re-evaluates its life choices and bolts for the stone circle. It makes a leap, is intercepted by the lightning, and vanishes with a slurp. Emily, James, Lucy and the Colonel gingerly emerge from behind the fallen tree, which is now looking like an apple core, and go to inspect the battlefield. The pensioners, like waking sleepwalkers, are shaking their heads to clear fog from their minds. "We did it," Lucy says. There's a flash of light and the Wicker Man appears right in front of them, flanked by his gnome reinforcements. He surveys the destruction and makes a growling noise. All of the gnomes, eyes burning with destructive energy, focus on our four friends. Caught in the open, there's no hope. Lucy screws up her eyes. Emily takes James's hand. The Colonel stands to attention. "Eradicate," commands the Wicker Man. Clang! The Wicker Man's head explodes in a shower of sparks and cogs. He wobbles uncertainly, then falls flat on what remains of his face. Behind him stands Mrs Gawthorpe with the sledgehammer in her hands. "Horrible thing," she says, with a dazed expression. The gnomes quiver and the light fades from their eyes. The lightning running around the stone circle abruptly fizzles out. All is still. All is quiet. James squeezes Emily's hand, then goes to take the sledgehammer from Mrs Gawthorpe. "You've all had a bit of a day of it, haven't you?" James says to the pensioners. "I think we'd better get you home. Nice cup of tea and a rest." That night at the Blue Dragon, the village pub is once again the hub of the survival celebrations. Mrs Gawthorpe and Mrs Anderson are playing dominoes. William is sat across a table from P.C. Garrett as they study a 19th century railway timetable. James and Emily are sharing a bowl of chips, their hands very close. "So, about those swords you wanted for the school children," James says. "I think the sponsorship budget will stretch to it." "Fantastic," Emily says, beaming. "It will really enhance the school's self-defence offering. Subject to a full risk assessment, of course." "Naturally," James replies, smiling. Late as it is, we'll pay a quick visit to the manor house on the Stride estate. Sir Montague Stride and his wife, Lady Wilhelmina, are enjoying a nightcap. They are looking at the Gainsborough above the mantelpiece. The digital loading icon that has been making its way across the bottom of the canvas for over a week is at 99%. "It's been stuck there all day," Sir Montague says. "Perhaps it's buffering," Wilhelmina replies. The bar clicks over to 100%. The painting collapses inwards, shrinking to a dot, like an ancient cathode ray television being switched off. "Oh, that's disappointing," Wilhelmina says. Then the canvas springs back to life. The original picture has been replaced by a painting of a sun-drenched California swimming pool in vibrant pinks and turquoises. Sir Montague picks up a magnifying glass from a nearby table and examines the artist's signature. "My goodness, it's a Hockney," he says. "Shall I call our broker in the morning, dear?" Wilhelmina asks. "Should be worth a few million if it's authenticated." Sir Montague ponders. "No, I don't think so," he eventually says. "It brightens the place up, don't you think? We can enjoy it. For a while, anyway." They clink their drinking glasses together. At the GP surgery, Dr. Mark Benson and Nurse Constance are working late. Mark bends over a microscope and slides the blood sample under the lens. He recoils. "Connie, come and look at this." Constance peers down the scope. The sample is nothing resembling normal. In fact, the blood cells look like binary code. "Where the heck did you get this?" she asks. "Mrs. Gawthorpe," Mark replies. Back at the stone circle in the dark of night, the silent twins, 2 teenage girls, are moving across the battlefield. They gather up gnomes in wicker shopping baskets. One of them kneels beside the body of the Wicker Man and plucks out an electronic eye. She looks up at her sister and smiles. Night has fallen on the village once again. It's time to let our friends get some sleep. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? Join me again soon, and we'll take another walk through Wychbeck.